What's going on, guys? Hope you're all doing well. Now, I am so excited to be bringing you this video. It's something that I've wanted to make for a long time now. Probably, in fact, ever since I started this channel. I've been wanting to make a series of more relaxing and laid-back videos with some of my favorite film cameras. So the first one that I'm going to be talking about is my Contax G1, which I have just off camera here. So let me go grab that. So this here is what it looks like. I'll give you kind of a top view first. A little bit of a front view. And then finally, this is what it looks like at the back. So the first thing that may surprise some people is this camera may actually be older than you're thinking. So just like me, this camera was made in the early 1990s. I don't remember the exact year, to be honest. And in fact, there was a Contax G2 that came out after this, which kind of just improved on this camera and added some new features as well, and some compatibility with different lenses. Now those ones, however, have gotten inordinately expensive, but you can still pick one of these up for a fairly reasonable price. So the lens that I have on it is the 90mm f2.8, and really I only have this front piece on to protect it when it's not in use, but otherwise you can actually just take it off. It unscrews from the front mount of the camera lens. So let me just do that a little bit slowly because I don't want the noise to be overwhelming. So there we go. That comes off just like that. And really that is just there as a lens hood, but I keep it on to protect it when it's in my camera bag. So this piece actually comes off, and then you can use that while it's on the front of the lens. I almost never use lens hoods though. Anyway, that's not really the point of this video. So this camera is a little bit unusual. It is technically a rangefinder, but it's also technically not, which makes it a little bit weird. So in a normal rangefinder, the way that you're composing is there's frame lines, and basically that's what you know your final image is going to be, and there's actually some extra space around those frame lines, so you can kind of basically see your composition unfolding before it happens. The way that you use more of a traditional camera is that you'll just see exactly what the photo is going to look like when it's finished, but you don't get that extra space. So some people like rangefinders better just because they can sort of plan ahead and see, especially street photographers, if subjects that are interesting are going to be making their way into the frame, and just sort of a timing thing. But anyway, the camera is made out of titanium. That is, I don't know if you can hear that. If I just tap on it a little bit, but that is all metal. And in fact, I think this particular color is called champagne, but I I am not positive about that. So this is how you turn the camera on. You can see that on indicator right here. You actually just flip this switch. I'm actually not going to be turning it on because there is film in here, and the focusing sound is horrible. Not relaxing at all. So on this switch is actually the shutter, and you just, I don't know if you can hear that, but you press it down like that, and you can do a little half press on it to focus it. I should mention that this does have a autofocus system, one of the earlier ones, but it's actually still pretty reliable as long as you put it in the right conditions. There are times, however, where you need to take manual control of it. So in order to do that, I usually leave it right here on autofocus. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little AF right there, which stands for autofocus. Not for some other things, now that I said that out loud. So if the camera sometimes will hunt for your focus point, you can actually take over control. So the way that you'll know the camera is hunting is, one, you can hear the motor working, but sometimes it will focus on something and you'll know that that is not your subject. Like, for example, if you have a subject about, let's say maybe 2 meters in front of you. This camera uses meters, so let's say 6 feet, roughly, give or take, and it's saying that it is focused to infinity. You know that it's not focused in the right place. So what you do is you just click down on the center of that wheel, and then it will snap into place. So that is a 1/2 meter. That's 0.6, 0.8, 1, 1.2. I guess I don't really have to go through the all the focus settings here. So it's got a couple of other ones. And then after you hit 5 meters here, it goes into infinity, which just means anything in the background pretty much is going to be in focus. And really you just use that when subjects are far away, so greater than 5 meters in this case. So I'm going to put that back to autofocus. And this camera, not only will it let you take control of your focus settings, but you can set the shutter speed as well. So the same feature applies here. You can just press down on this wheel and then pick whatever shutter speed you like. So some people like to use that and bring their own light meters. Or this camera also has an auto mode for that. So once you line it up with this little ridge in the center, I'd call it, you can, like I have it now, you can have it set on autofocus and auto exposure. I actually haven't had a problem with the light meter in this camera, so I usually, I like to overexpose slightly, about 2/3 of a stop. I just find that I get a little bit of extra shadow detail, which, by the way, you can always edit out if you choose, but it's better to have it and not need it than the opposite, which is true of so many things. So I just give it 2 clicks, and that's a third, and then the second click is 2/3 of a stop, and then you can keep going. You can overexpose by 2 stops, or on the other end, you can underexpose by 2 stops. But I personally leave it to 2/3 of a stop. So that is how you set your focal distance and your shutter speed. So once you have that set up, you can obviously go ahead and take the picture. One thing I will say that's not ideal about this camera is you can see how small that focus window is right here. So it's a little bit difficult, especially on a very sunny day, just lining that up and making sure that the photo is exactly the way you want. So like anything, you kind of get used to it and you just do the best that you can. So we have a hot shoe here for the flash, and there are some Contax flashes that go with this camera that are floating out there on places like eBay, which these old Contax cameras have really blown up in price for a lot of different reasons. One is they're just really good cameras, but I think people are sort of catching on to that. And also, film has seen a little bit of a resurgence lately. I haven't been shooting film terribly long myself. It's been about 1.5 years or so. So normally, to open up the back, which I'm not going to do, because there is actually a roll of film in there. I have a Superior 400 by Fuji at the moment, and I probably should have mentioned this earlier, is this window right here is your frame counter. So in a lot of these cameras, since the screens are LCD, you get a little bit of the LCD leak. So they're not always legible, but luckily everything here works perfectly. So it's very hard to see, but I am on exposure number 5 here. But the way that you would change the roll in this camera is there is this little tab here that comes up, and then what you would do is just kind of twist it to the right. I don't want to take any chances with this because it is turning out to be a very good roll, and I am sure I just jinxed it, but that's what happens sometimes. So one of the hallmarks of these cameras is the lenses. So like I mentioned before, this is a 90mm f2.8 is what it gets all the way down to. So it's a little bit unusual to find, especially on more of a, it's not really a point and shoot style camera, but a lot of lenses for similar cameras don't go down all the way to 2.8. Some of them start like 3.5 maybe, something like that. But also, I don't know if you saw that, but it is a Carl Zeiss lens, which have gotten quite the reputation for being extremely sharp, which I can confirm after seeing some of the photos that I've taken with this camera. It's really, really good. And I'm not sure, maybe it's just because of how old they are, but there are some old lenses out there that are actually very sharp. It's just that lens technology today, the lenses have gotten a lot cheaper, and the quality is actually pretty good. So like I mentioned, this gets all the way down to f2.8, and that's what I have it set here on the dial. And if you want to change that, you can just start turning it to the left here to increase the aperture all the way up to f22. So at around f22, you'd really need a lot of light, especially if you're hand holding. And then of course, if you want to go and make the aperture smaller, well, I guess it's larger, but it's larger technically because it opens up the lens more. I don't know if this is going to be in focus. Maybe the lighting is too strong. But once I do that, you can see the aperture starting to close up. And that is why cameras need more light once the apertures get up to like f16, stuff like that. Just because the lens is so closed off. So if I go in the other direction, you can start to see that open. And then it's completely open once I go to 2.8 on there. So everything about this camera is pretty easy. You don't have to worry too much, especially if you leave everything on auto mode. The one thing you need to look out for is that focusing issue that I mentioned. You may see it get locked onto the wrong subject on occasion, as I already said. And when you are looking through the viewfinder, it will give you a distance reading of what it's focused on. So that's how you know your subject's off, for example, if it's giving you an unexpected number. So underneath this piece of the lens, there's an actual motor that connects it from the body to the lens, and that is probably something that is taken for granted today, but it was a little bit more difficult back in those days. And the way that you take this lens off is you just press down on this button, and then you can rotate it, and you can kind of feel it lift away from the camera body. So that is what the lens looks like. This is probably one of the biggest, if not the largest, in terms of size for these cameras. If you get some of the 45mm especially, it's a really compact setup and very high quality. So a lot of people love the portability of these. I don't have those lenses, however, because like everything else related to this camera system, it's gotten very expensive. Although maybe I do keep an eye out on eBay, and if I see a good deal, maybe I'll pick one up. So guys, that is going to do it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed my overview of one of my favorite film cameras, which of course is my Contax G1, and I will see you again in another video very soon.